Hi, Deborah Callahan here. My intention for this channel is to present today's most authentic forward thinkers, healers, and cutting edge solution finders. Today's guest is all of that and more. Daniel Bruce Levin is a visionary, mystic, healer, guide, author, storyteller, and consultant to corporations and governments around the world, and someone who has personally pushed me way out of my comfort zone. So honored to have you here today, Daniel.
It's my absolute honor and treat and pleasure. And I think we should just end right there because anything I say is only going to make what you said about me worse.
So for those of you who don't know, Daniel is the former director of business development for Hay House Publishing, helping to take it from a $3 million company to a $100 million company. Daniel, your life has been extraordinary in the fact that you've had major plot twists, some that were imposed upon you, like the death of your parents as a young boy, and many that you chose, like leaving the seminary in Jerusalem a day before being ordained as a rabbi, living as a monk in a monastery for 10 years, and then leaving the monastery to get married, and then leaving Hay House to start a clothing company. Clearly you trusted and you followed your inner voice while making these major life decisions. But at that point, did you have like complete clarity about that? Or did you feel as though you were being pulled, like this feels crazy, but this is what I have to do?
Great question. I think for most of my life, I felt like I had a fear of commitment because it seemed like as soon as I would get involved in something and as soon as I became intricate to the workings of whatever it was that I was doing, that it no longer interests me and I would leave. For a long time, I worried that am I having commitment phobia? Am I not able to stick to what it is I'm doing? Because it's not normal for people. I say to people, I've lived a million different lifetimes this lifetime, and I feel that maybe I'm over exaggerating a tiny bit, but not that much, because I've really changed my complete persona so many different times. It was only about a few years ago that I looked and I said, I didn't have commitment phobia. I had the wherewithal somehow to say when something didn't feel comfortable to me, when it didn't feel like I fit there anymore, to just get up and go.
Right.
And what I found is most of the people that were my friends got to that same place also, but did not have that. And so they stayed in positions or jobs or things that they ended up hating, that were boring to them, that were just became rote because they had already done it. And they became more and more unhappy in the work that they were doing because it wasn't fulfilling anymore. And one of the places that I started to realize as that was happening, it only happened because life started giving it to me. People started coming to me and saying, I really need to make a change. And you've made so many changes. Can you help me get through this transition? And I said, whoa, that's interesting. So the world sort of took my misconception and gave me a way to change my perception and actually see what I thought was a shortcoming as an actually huge advantage.
Definitely. So how do you now, well, how did you then, and actually how do you now recognize when you're betraying yourself or denying your truth?
It's just a feeling, and I feel so weird even saying some of these things because I'm always a 2 feet on the ground, sometime head in the clouds sort of guy. I've always had 2 feet on the ground. And I'm not a very woo-woo sort of person, even though when I look back on my life, I've had a lot of woo-woo instances. But something's happened to me over the course of my life where I just was able to feel stuff. And I could feel the difference between being in alignment with where I was and being out of alignment with where I was. And for the beginning part of that transitionary period, I always thought, well, there's something wrong with me. I just have to realign. Like you can't just change positions every whenever because it just you don't feel comfortable there anymore. Part of it is working my way through those things and getting through it and going on to the next challenge. But all I can say is whatever it was for me isn't important for anybody else, but it's important for people to come to terms with the way their life is working and to feel from inside, is this the moment or is this not the moment? And part of what I learned to do somehow, that believe me, I'm not a master in this. I'm, far from it. But I started to speak to everything and then I started to listen. So
Wow.
I started to say to a situation when it was feeling like it was time to change. Like I walked away from the opportunity to run a multi-billion-dollar company. And because I just asked it, is this mine to do? And it said no. And I said, come on, nobody walks away from a multi-billion-dollar company and the opportunity. They were going to train me and train me and train me and make sure every time I felt they were going to pick me up, I would have been a multi-billionaire. And I walked away to hitchhike around the world to find inner peace. That's not something that someone makes a decision to do. That's something that just it was forced upon me because that was the only thing left to do. But I just listened. And most of my friends would have not done that. Most of the people that I know today would not have done that.
Absolutely not.
Right?
No. So do you think you're at a point now where you trust life totally?
No, I wish I was. I'm a reluctant mystic. I like the answer that I would like to give you is yes, I should be at that place because I've tested it so many times,
Mhm.
but I feel so many things that I don't trust that I feel those things because
Really?
it's not the way the world around me operates. And the model of the world that is given to me is that this is the way it is. But I don't feel those things that way. So I trust more than I did before, but there's times still where I'm kicking and screaming and saying, come on, please don't do this to me now.
Right.
Right.
Same.
Like, let me just have a few moments of just where I can coast for a little while. But that isn't somehow my way. And if it is your way for anybody who's listening, celebrate that for a little while and enjoy the glory of being able to coast. But there will come a time when you're coasting and it will not feel glorious anymore. It will feel boring. It will feel like it weighs you down. It will feel like it's not yours to do anymore. And in those moments, the quicker you adapt, the less pain you feel. For me, at least, when I took pause in that,
Mhm.
the message got louder and louder and louder and louder until the place where I had to give in. But when the message got louder, the pain involved in the message got more.
Ooh, yeah. Isn't that the way?
Well, maybe. So what I'm trying to suggest is that if the more sensitive I become to the whisper, I don't have to have the pain.
Hmm.
And I don't think anybody else does either.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying in a neat little capsule is the better I get at listening, the better I get at communicating to the life that I'm involved in. Everything's speaking to me. My business is speaking to me. The opportunities that are in front of me are speaking to me. And they're not predictable answers that I would get. Sometimes they are, but many times they are very unpredictable because they're meant to show me a different perspective. And I have to get out of the perspective I'm in to see that. I hope I'm making sense.
For sure. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about your book, The Mosaic. When I first read your book, I thought it was a very enjoyable read. It was an easy read, but deep. And I read it as a parable from your own life and then tried to connect the characters back to my own journey.
Yes.
And now I have an entirely new appreciation for this book. It's almost like it's a living, breathing like oracle deck or something where the characters keep showing themselves in different patterns and configurations. And the more I sit with that, it's brilliant, actually. So
Thank you.
my question for you is, how has your book morphed to help you recently?
I think my book was written for me. I just had a conversation with a man that I met on Clubhouse, and he made a beautiful movie called, it's not beautiful, it's a hard movie to watch because it's about the massacre in one of the African countries where the brothers and sisters were at each other's throats. And it takes place in this little room that's underneath the room of the living room because these people are hiding these four women in this room. The whole film takes place in a small cubicle, but the way he filmed it was so beautiful and
Do you
had
remember
so
the
much.
name of it?
Yeah, the movie's called Trees of Peace, and it's available on Netflix. I met him, and he was looking for a possible movie, and I said, well, I'd really love you to take a look at The Mosaic. He read it, and he said, first of all, I love the story, but as a movie, it's not going to work. And I said, tell me, I'm wide open to hear. He said, it's too good. There's not enough adversity in it. And for a movie in particular, there has to be more, the backdrop has to be painful And then your character has to get through that pain to emerge into something. And he's right. You know, when I wrote it, because I wrote it, it was written for me because I was so ensconced in the pain that I was feeling in my life that the book was there to help me see the goodness that each one of those incidences had, not the pain. I already knew the pain. Every single day without fail, the characters of that mosaic come alive in me. I don't know where I would be without it, to be honest, because the trash man comes to me almost religiously, at least once a week when they collect my trash outside.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. I don't know why I'm so incapable of letting go of stuff, but I hold a lot of stuff in my body. My body's big as a result of that because I hold the pain of other people that I help work with. I hold incidences in my own life.
Right.
And the trash man comes to me and says, whenever you're ready to let go of this, here's a trash can.
Wow.
Just take all of that pain
Yeah.
and just put it in here. And some of it is too big for me to even pick up now.
Yeah.
Because it's just grown within me and it feels like it's a part and it sort of needs to be cut out of me because it's become part of me. And the trash man says, I can make time. So let me know when you want to do it and I'll arrange my day and I'll come and I'll help you take the stuff out. And so there's no longer any excuse for me to hold on to things that I can't let go of because he's willing to help me carry them away.
That's beautiful. So I haven't told you this, but I actually have a little book coming out soon. And it's called Signs and Synchronicities, proof that we're always supported, especially in our grief.
Wow.
And I'm sure that you've had many, many signs and synchronicities appear in your life, but could you maybe share one of the most profound?
Yeah. Just recently, my wife does some work with a man who is pretty influential in Africa.
Okay.
And he invited both of us to come and sort of help in leading a tour on the Nile in Egypt. Now, of all the things that were on my bucket list, Egypt was never one of those things that was on my bucket list. It's on so many people's bucket lists. My wife had like huge bucket list, and and Egypt was like front and center on her list. I had zero desire to go to Egypt. Maybe because I was born Jewish, I don't know, but I sort of felt like, oh my God, they might not even let me into the country, you know, because my last name's Levin, and like, you know, I have to tell you, my whole conception of everything having to do with the Arab culture, having to do with Islam, having to do with Egypt, having to do with my own ability to move. I was in a chair for 2 years, not moving. And suddenly now I'm on a boat. I'm flying out, 15 hours to Egypt. I'm moving around in places and I had to get around. But we met on that boat. He had us come to lead 2 one-week trips, not just one. On the second 1-week trip, we met a man. He's better looking than I was. But when I looked at him, he reminded me of me when I was 30 years old. I mean, I literally looked at him and I said, oh my God, you look exactly like I look. I mean, better looking version. He was smarter than I was, but still the persona of him was so close that I actually said to my wife, who's 21 years younger than I, if something happens to me, I'm going to actually talk to him because I would like to see if you and he could get together. And she said, you're going to think this is crazy, but I've never thought of being with anybody other than you. But when I saw him, I thought a similar thing.
Really?
And so I brought him over, and he felt like a brother from another mother. I mean, really beautiful. I loved him. He loved me. He loved Anna. She loved him. I said it to him, and he said, I don't know where the future will take us, but I can guarantee you this. You will never have to worry about your family when you're gone. I will make sure they're okay.
Wow.
He ends up coming from a lineage of people where he that either served the king of Lebanon or was in the royal family of Lebanon. And then he introduced me to another fellow who we're doing some work with. And the work that we're doing, it could not be closer to the dream that I've had my entire life.
Really?
They're rewriting the blueprint of the world. The blueprint of the world right now is coded for competition.
Yes.
In other words, I have to win. In order for me to be successful, I have to win and you have to lose. And we have little win-win communities, which are cute and adorable when some of them are working and so, but the amount of people that play in a win-win world is very, very minimal.
Mhm.
They're rewriting that world to be coded to care, that the only way we grow is when we help someone else grow.
Mhm. So
And
interesting. I interviewed a Colombian shaman and she spoke about competition. It's interesting
yeah,
you're bringing that up.
and so there will be a new code to the way, like everything, when you're a computer programmer, which I am not, everything in the world works according to code.
Mhm.
So the way the world is coded, it's just easier for us to compete with each other than it is to cooperate.
Mm.
Like Bucky Fuller said, you can't change the way of the world by the thinking of the world. You have to create a new paradigm that makes the old paradigm obsolete. They're creating that new paradigm. And all that happened because I was on a boat, which I had no desire to be on, that I had no idea why I was on, that I had no idea really what I was doing. But they saw in me this ability for people to just love people and for people to trust me, which made them want me to be involved, because storytelling this new paradigm is going to have to come from a place of love and trust. And so I can't think of much more synchronicity than that. I didn't even expect or want or think or desire or anything to be in this place.
That's amazing. And I can't wait to see what comes of that. So
Yes.
I recently heard Panache Desai say that death is what makes life beautiful. What would you say it is that makes life beautiful?
I think life is what makes life beautiful.
Life.
And I think death is what makes the urgency of life beautiful. But I think I've been transfixed with this idea of how perception changes reality. And
Yeah.
when I think about it, we all know that black and white drawing of the woman that looks like, one way it looks like an old hag and the other way it looks like a socialite.
Yes.
The amazing thing to me about that drawing is that both of them exist at the same time.
Mhm.
But the way we see something prevents us from, like when I see the old hag, it's impossible for me to see the young socialite. I
Right.
remember someone saying to me, "What do you see?" I said, "I see an old hag." And they said, "Well, can you see a young socialite?" And I said, "Like, what are you, crazy? I mean, I know you're trying to be politically correct, but there's no way this woman who looks like an old hag is anything like a young, beautiful socialite. I mean, you're crazy." They said, "No, take a look at it. And take a look at it until you can see her." And I said, "That's you're crazy. It's an old hag."
Yeah. And
Un-
it's so true.
Until that moment where it switched. And I said, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, I see it now."
And that's really the premise of my little book that's coming out, because I was able to have a perspective change instead of wallowing in my misery, making the decision to try to look for signs and synchronicities and beautiful things. And the more that I looked for that, the more that showed up for me.
That's
And
beautiful.
then I was able to get to a place of gratitude and not the other way around. It really was my path to gratitude. And then just that change of perspective really changed my whole life.
Years ago, when I was at Hay House sitting with Wayne Dyer at a lunch, and he just come up with the thought that when I change the way I see the world I see changes.
Mhm.
Just perspective. And so one of the most powerful things that I realize now is that things out there don't have to change. All that has to change is the way I see the things that are out there. Because just like that young socialite is in the picture with the old hag, everything that's good in this world exists in the same world that I'm seeing, that's of the world that's bad.
Right.
It's just a change of perspective.
Right. So what would be the one message of encouragement that you would give for anybody who feels disoriented with life right now?
I would say congratulations. What a beautiful place to be in, because when we feel disoriented, we are open to question the reality that we see. And when we are open to question, hopefully we're open to listening to the answers that our questions give. All too often, people get caught in the questions, but don't take time to listen to the answers.
Right.
I would invite people to, from their disorientation, celebrate that place that they're in that's jolted them from what they've always done. Ask, what is it that you want me to see? And then listen. You can ask that of your business. You can ask that of your house. You can ask that of your environment. You can ask that of your relationship you're in. You can ask that of yourself. You can ask that of anything, your community. You can ask that of your church group or your synagogue or your meditation group. What is it that you want me to see? And remember, when we don't listen, it gets louder. And when it gets louder, it gets more painful.
Mhm.
If we're sitting in pain, the antidote is just hold it. I'm obviously not hearing something you want me to hear. What is it you want to say? Can you make it so clear to me that I can't do anything but understand it?
Wow. That's a beautiful note to end on, I think. Thank you so much for all of this. So if anybody would like to follow you, I know your platform is mainly Clubhouse.
Well, I'm on all the social media. You can
Okay.
go on my website. I have two websites. I have danielbrucelevin.com and I have the mosaiconline.com. Both of them have access to all my social media. And I'm on Clubhouse, but I'm an old-fashioned guy. You don't have to get me through social media. If you're interested in something, or if you have questions, or if you have something that you want to talk about, email me. And my email is danielbrucelevin@gmail.com. Easy. And I will be in 2024 getting when the Volkswagen electric microbus comes out. I will be purchasing that, and I will be starting a trip around the world. So if anybody is interested in hosting me or feeding me or setting up a group of their friends so I can come and hold a circle with them, or setting up a place where we can experience the experience of life together, I'm wide open. Please, let's do that, because my goal when I take that little bus around the world is just to explode love into the world.
Mm,
This world is aching for a big love.
yes, for sure.
And I just want to start to love it. I want to go to places where people love each other and hate each other. Places where they're in turmoil, prisons, hospitals, schools, medical places, hate groups. And I just want to sit and listen to people. Because again, when people don't feel heard, they yell, they tantrum, and they attack.
Yeah.
When they feel heard, there's no reason for them to do that. And I believe that the world can have peace if we would only listen to each other.
For sure. Thank you so much.
My
Honestly,
honor.
thank you. And I can't wait to see you when you come to the East Coast.
Well, we will definitely have time together. I'm looking
Okay.
forward to that.
Thanks, Daniel. Take care.